Hey there. So, this whole thing of using Windows Server as part of an Azure Infrastructure as a Service setup is pretty exciting, don't you think? What's cool about Azure is that it lets enterprises scale their resources without heavy investments in physical hardware. That's right, no more hassles and massive expenses for new servers as business grows or when unexpected spikes in traffic happen. Now, we are talking cloud. As a senior cloud architect, I've got lots of stories where my folks at work saved tons of cash and time just by using Azure for their servers, so yeah, it's real valuable. Okay, so before we dive in and start setting things up, it's essential to get our plans straight, and that's where we start, right? We'll need to determine the workload requirements like how much computing, memory, and network bandwidth we are going to need for our VMs. That way, we can choose the right compute size and network performance in Azure. Next up, security. We've seen too many horror stories about data breaches if they're not careful. I always advise ensuring that data is encrypted both in transit and at rest in Azure. It's a small step which makes a big difference. We also can't neglect repay, redundancy and availability. Since Azure is a cloud platform, having an extra VM running in a different region just in case is not a bad idea. That's how I ensure availability for my enterprise clients and make disaster recovery a breeze. Speaking of repay, if your VM consumes large amounts of data, it's crucial to choose a storage option that fits your needs and budget. Azure provides 3 different types: standard SSD, and premium. My advice: don't rush into the cheapest option. Choose something reliable and fast. Trust me, you'll thank me later when things start getting hectic. Once you've sorted it out here, we march towards Azure Portal, the control hub, right? It helps manage all aspects of our Azure environment, from virtual machines to networking and storage. Deploying our VM will involve a series of steps in Azure Portal, starting from creating an Azure subscription to choosing the appropriate region for your data center needs, setting up the virtual machine, adding the operating system, and installing required applications. Remember, we'll need to think about things like monitoring setup for our VMs and setting up proper connectivity. Now that you've deployed your VMs and set things up to run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine, I bet you were wondering what's next. You'll want to secure and protect your deployments. I've always gone the extra mile here, setting up firewalls, access control lists, and even setting alerts for unusual traffic patterns and suspicious activities. It's all about staying a step ahead, ensuring that your deployment runs like clockwork. I haven't forgotten about troubleshooting and optimizing. After all, these are part of our responsibilities. We've dealt with all sorts of issues, from minor hiccups to potential disasters, but by setting up the right monitoring and alerts, we've managed to catch problems before they blow up into big headaches. I always tell my team that the more prepared you are, the easier it is to handle the unexpected. Let's not forget about cost. You don't want to end up overspending on resources. Azure allows granular control over costs, so you have a direct line into the finances of your servers. I'd recommend keeping an eye out for Azure budgets and getting some friendly chat to your billing department once a month. No one likes that big, unexpected bill, right? Finally, I've learned not to rest on our laurels. We've built a reliable system, sure, but it's also about adapting and improving as our needs change. Azure's amazing, but there's always room for enhancement. it's best to revisit and review your setup on a scheduled basis. Oh look, time's flown. It's been a pleasure sharing insights on planning and deploying Windows Server IaaS VMs in Azure with you. Remember, I'm always here if you need a helping hand with this high-stakes arena. Oh, and one more thing, visit Neeraj at qzz.io and subscribe to TechLab for more useful advice and insights. Catch you next time.